We back today with another video, recent brand new series in a collaboration between my brother Christian and I. This is faith and finance. So it's going to be a collaboration between us. My name is Corey Phillips. I'm the founder of Social Storm, and we're a media company that teaches teens and young adults about financial literacy and entrepreneurship for economic growth within the community. And it's important that we cannot do anything with finances or wealth if we don't have any faith or anything that we're going after with morality and faith and all that by giving back to others. So this I'll be my brother Christian over here, and he can give us a brief introduction of who he is and what he does.
All right, so what's up, y'all? So I am Christian Phillips. I am the founder of Vision Films, a photography videography brand where I target mostly the athletes and just to create content to just push out the idea of sports and basically give sports a new light. And then I also have another company where it's advancing God's kingdom, and that is where it's a Christian podcast where we talk about faith and just how to advance God's kingdom into like the glory that He deserves. And I'm just with my brother Corey. So
yes, definitely. It's very important for us to be able to collaborate, different people from different perspectives, different mindsets, come together and put pride and ego aside and do something for the greater good of the community. Because you have a lot of people trying to do their own thing, but we all have a common mission, which is trying to support people economically, financially, building up mindset. And we feel like a big problem within the community is that we have a lack of faith and we have a lack of financial knowledge. So being able to put those two together, because you can't just do things. You can't just make money without having that spiritual aspect to it, because you need some sort of goal in mind. You need something that goes after to help you, that's bigger than money, about helping, serving other people, serving your community, serving people in your life, serving others, not just making money. You need to have that purpose, and that's so important. So for today's episode, we'll start off with a different verse that Christian brought up to us. So we'll have a conversation, have some questions after it, where he'll tell us what the quote is and where you guys can find it within the Bible, because we're both Christian. So we all know that the people from all parts of the world with different religions, but we just want to be able to share this information so that we can connect to more people, not about which one's better, which one's worse. It's about seeing different perspectives, and this is our perspective, and this is what we can have a greater good for humanity as a whole.
Okay, so basically the scripture today will be in 1 Corinthians 12, and then I'll read 12, and then later on I'll read 15 and 16. And it reads, "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ." And then verse 15 says, "For if the foot would say, 'Because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less part of the body. And if an ear would say, 'Because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less part of the body." So basically what the scripture is representing is how in the realm of Christianity, for example, is that we all, as humans, have different personalities, different interests throughout our lives. We are all basically made different in the eyes of God, and how basically when it comes to this is God allows us to, like I said, God allows us to have different personalities and interests, but when we see other people and we're trying to be like them, we are not truly being ourselves and trying to be who God created us to be. So we need to be able to basically take light of who God created us to be and just to live that out instead of trying to be like someone else.
Right. We live in this age where a lot of people kind of feel like they have to portray this sort of image that is not necessarily true. You have this kind of like culture where people want to promote people overspending on things that they don't need, on things that they can't afford, trying to pose on pictures of a life that isn't real, and that puts them into a state where they're spending all this money to portray an image that really doesn't help benefit them in their life. Right. That ultimately puts them into a false reality, a false narrative, and that's where people put themselves in a situation where they're not making smart financial decisions, which they get into debt. They try to they lose a lot of family members. They're doing things for selfish reasons. They don't have something that they're going after, and that's not really sustainable. You're making short term fixes to try to solve your long term issue, and that's ultimately not going to be something that's sustainable. And that's where you have a lot of problems with mental health, anxiety, a lot of things within, like just being unstable within your household because you're just trying to spend all your money, your paychecks into vacations and to expensive clothes, but you're failing to pay your rent. You're failing to save up. You're failing to basically build up your wealth because you're trying to throw that all the way into the materialistic things or an idea or something that really isn't really bringing back a rate of return on investment, like stocks, real estate, business, or working a regular job.
And I would say that basically came in through the like integration of social media because basically when people are, I would say social media is basically like an app or like a network where you are basically able to see what everyone is doing around the world, good and bad. So basically when you are in one part of the area and you see your neighborhood, you're like, I'm doing pretty good for myself. But then you see halfway across the country, there's these guys with these big cars, this big houses, a lot of money, and then people see that and they aspire to be that. I'm not saying that it's bad to aspire to be greater than yourself, but then it comes to a aspect where people are starting to be unrealistic when it comes to things.
Right.
So they will take their lives as, let's say, for example, you are making $30,000 a year in this current moment, and you want to do better, you want to do higher, so you're going to start taking gradual steps to get that point. But you can't really compare yourself from $30,000 to a person who's making $2 million because you have two different mentalities, two different problems. So this is where if you are going after that, you have to be able to figure out what the mindset of that $2 million person is and figure out how to take the steps to do that. But just aspiring to be someone different than yourself to the point where you are not even happy where you are is, I feel like, where the problem is.
Right. Because ultimately the average income in the United States is $50,000. Your average person is not driving a Rolls Royce, a Cybertruck, Ferrari, Lamborghini, getting the Christian Dior bags, wearing all these expensive clothes. Most people cannot afford that. And you're putting all the content with rappers, artists, celebrities on social media, perfecting this perfect idea that everyone could have this. But in reality, not everyone can afford this. We need to start making smart financial decisions about that. We need to not change the way we view people that we think are role models because we have too many people trying to think that, oh, we need to become a rapper.
And I would say, honestly, most people can't even deal with the problems that it takes to get to that point. Because I would say, for example, is if you have like a stable income of like $30,000, $50,000 and you are just managing with what you have, that's a different type of problem. But then when you start getting more money, that's where people have to start putting it into new avenues. So you have to start worrying about where you're going to start putting money. You have to start figuring out how you're going to basically keep it up, how you are going to push it out to the future. And there's a lot of avenues that it takes to get to that point that a lot of people don't necessarily know.
Right. You're putting yourself into a situation where you're always kind of a slave to the system because you'll never be free because you'll always be chasing something. You're chasing that dream, that idea, something that's unrealistic that you'll never reach. And you'll never be fulfilled because you need that sort of purpose. Like, what are you trying to accomplish in this world? It can't just be money. You must be able to do things like give back to your community, solve worldwide issues, trying to do new and innovative ideas. Because we have enough people trying to talk on Facebook about who's got the best outfit on when we don't have enough people trying to solve world hunger or how we can solve infrastructure or how we can try to connect with people across the world with different, they have different like languages, cultures, ideologies, and just have a conversation because that can go a long way.
So, how would you say you are able to find this contentment of where you are, but also not be stagnant and trying to improve?
So, can you ask that question again?
Like, I would say, like, how would you say that you are able to find contentment with where you are to not basically idolize someone, but also be able to have room to have dreams, have goals, and still want something for your life without just being like, I don't need anything else in my life.
I mean, I'm never content of where I am. I always believe that there's a better opportunity, there's a better way for me to get better each and every day because I feel like too many people get content. Too many people are content with their situation of where they're at. I mean, that's fine, you can do that. But for me, I always want to be the best at what I do, whether that's in business, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in spirituality, or whether that's just in personal development. There's always something new for me to know. And I feel like it's a disservice to myself and the people that love me to just stay stuck at where I'm at because there's always someone I can help out learn something about finances or business or just having a conversation with them because that can go a long way. And I feel like, especially today's society, you get filled with all this dopamine with instant gratification. People want to get all these things instantly with clothes, money, fame, whether all those things. But in reality, I feel like I'm not really content, but I'm always uh, I take I kind of appreciate the process of building something because true wealth is not is for something is built long term, like years, decades, your whole entire life maybe, or you may never reach it. But knowing that you're on a path to something greater than yourself is something that can kind of not necessarily keep me content, but keep me at peace throughout my life.
Because, like, basically, like, what I'm speaking of is how, especially when it gets into like the grind mentality, is that a lot of people will like grind their whole life and never be happy with where they are because they never took the time to really appreciate the process, really appreciate where they are. So I'm just saying how, like, I know, like, as for me, I'm trying to be able to take a point where I still have goals. I'm still trying to be the best version of who I can be, but also take the time to appreciate where I am and where the process that I'm.
Right. Because they're always trying to look at the end goal, but they don't really appreciate the things that they already have now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like people, like they're looking at the hundreds of $1 million, but they're making six figures. Like you're making decent money, and you have a family, you have a lot of people in your life that appreciate you, and people get too stuck on the end goal, and they kind of don't realize until they're gone, until those people and those things that they didn't appreciate when they had them are gone. And that's why like be able to appreciate the present because everyone's so far looking to the future or looking to the past, but they don't able to appreciate what's right in front of us, the beauties, the joy, the excitement that's right in front of us because they're so stuck on our phones. We're so stuck on what's happening next, what's the next trend, what's going to happen next, or what too stuck on the past about what's happened in the past, the problems that we see, but we don't see the growth that came from the past that we see in the present. And what's in the present is what can build and what's going to the future. Like all the history that's happened. Appreciate greatness. I look at people like Noah Lyles. Noah Lyles is someone that a lot more people need to look at because he's someone that knows how to prepare in the biggest way. He's been able to perform at the biggest stage. He's one of the greatest athletes in 200-meter history, and he's not even focused about like when he's in the moment. He's not even focused about what's the next race. He's focused on that race right now, and you see a lot of people think about it's about like the past. So he wasn't able to run the 100. But he went in and came to the race, and he worked. He knew he put in the small things each and every day to the point where he was mentally superior, to the point where he was able to compete in the 100-meter dash. And even though he was in last place up to 60 meters, he was able to put himself in that situation up to now. It doesn't matter if he was a world championship the last couple years. It doesn't matter what he's going to do in the 200. All that matters is what he did in the 100. And he finished the race and knew what he needed to do to win. And that's what he took. So never be content. He could have been content with just being a 200 meter world champion. He could have been content with just being the American record holder. He could have just been content with just being a 100 meter world champion. But no, he said, no, I'm going to go into the 200, the 100 and become the Olympic champion. And I'm not just a 200 meter runner. I can do this because he had a lot of things against him. A lot of people have problems, they have issues, but one thing you have to do is persevere through them. And because he had asthma when he was a kid, he was in hospital. He had a lot of mental problems that he had to go through. He had to fight through a lot of things, a lot of hate. People in his own country talking about he cannot win the 100 or he's not that guy. He's not him. He's not going to be that person. But he cut all that noise out, and he was true to himself, no matter what, with the cards, with the different moves before the being hyped before the race. People don't understand that he lived true to himself, and he was not content with his life, and he always continued to build on top of himself each and every year, so that he can be a better, not just athlete, but a better person in general, that show and inspire other people throughout the world.
And then you also saw how he actually took the time to enjoy. Like, I know how people basically call him as like cocky and stuff, but he was just like outwardly expressive of how he really is just enjoying the moment. And that's something that a lot of people don't see in track and field, because people can paint track athletes as just, especially like 100 athletes, is just like straight serious. You don't say anything, you don't do nothing, and then you just run the race. Congratulations, you won. Move about your day. But the thing about him is that he actively expressed his joy for the sport, the joy for just being in that moment, and that's what honestly made him receive a lot of the hate that he received, because people just saw it as like ignorance or just like him just being just cocky and stuff. But that was just his personality of him just enjoying it.
Right. Because so many people are trying to compare him to other athletes, but Noah Lyles is Noah Lyles. He's being true to himself regardless of what stance or podium that he's on, whether that's the nails, whether that's the celebration, whether that's the cards or his personality. He stayed true to himself, even when no one else believed in him, or when everyone was against him. He stayed true to himself, and you see now he's a world champion and an Olympic champion, and he's just getting started. He's inspiring people in a world where people are kind of being fake or stuck in a box, that they can go outside that box and be true to themselves and be their true authentic selves in 2024. Because so many people are kind of stuck to get to be a certain thing or be a certain norm. But in reality, that's not who set those standards of being that specific norm. Nobody. It's just kind of an idea that people kind of came up with and said this is how things are supposed to be. But in reality, everyone's different, has different aspects and different ways of life. So it's not really fair to put a specific norm on something that is kind of a small percentage of people, but put that on everyone.
Yes, and then actually going off of that, I would say, what would you say is a way to like start embracing your strengths, even if they differ from others or lead to self-acceptance and growth?
Can you say that again?
Like, how would you, like, what steps would you take, like, what Noah Lyles did is basically, like, embracing your strengths and basically, like, knowing what you're strong at, what you're weak at, and basically trying to, with knowing your complete self, being able to push off to be the best version of who you can be.
Not allowing those outside people to be able to affect who you are and what you're doing. Go after what you like to do and double down on it. Doesn't matter what these people say within your community or people say all across the world on social media. Those people do not bring positivity to your life. Cut out anything that is negative or downplays what you're doing. You never know where you can go if you just believe. You just have to have faith. This starts with faith in yourself. Faith in that you can do it. That you will be that person. You have to envision yourself in that situation of being that world champion, whether that's in track and field or being that entrepreneur, being that person that can lead a whole entire country or lead people around the world to create something positive. You have to believe that you can do that idea, that you will reach that mission that you can do, because if you can't think of it, you can't see yourself doing it, envision yourself doing it, then you can't get there. You don't know how to take, you have to be able to believe it, and then you have to be able to do the steps that it takes to get down that path. Even if you're not 100% sure, because you'll never 100% know until you actually try it. Because most people, like, let's think of 70% of your thoughts are internal battle with yourself. You can't let those internal battles stop you from taking those next steps, taking that leap of faith, taking that next route that you're going to get to where you want to be. But it starts with having faith in yourself, and do not let those negative things in your life, those demons, those people, those ideas stop you from reaching your goal.
What would you say is something in recent time that you've basically taken a leap of faith on?
Being able to take a leap of faith on is being able for me to.
Or like what area in your life have you done that?
I've done that. I've done that both in high school and college. I say going, not caring what other people say about me and what I'm doing. Like, I'm gonna promote myself, what I'm doing with my brand. Like, going all in, I'd say, is not doing football. I say me jumping into the entrepreneurship, being able to go outside of just athletics and venture into business, because for a lot of people think you just have to be a certain narrative of being an athlete, that you can't do great things in the community, you can't be smart, you can't be intelligent, you can't be someone that is influenced outside of athletics, especially as an African American. We have a lot of people that are doing things in athletics and entertainment, but we don't have enough people that are doing things within business, entrepreneurship, and being public speakers, because we have this certain narrative that you're successful black men are people that are either a rapper or an entertainer or actor, but we don't have enough people doing that thing that's positive, things that are productive, teaching people how to invest in, teaching people that they can reach their full potential. And I want to be that person that can lead a whole entire generation to reach their full potential and their truth in a society where a lot of people are kind of don't know how to have their voice, and they don't know how to have that support that they need, that they can be successful. So being able to do that, and then continuing to believe in my idea even when no one else did, because my brand started off with just an idea, and then as soon as I continued to just reach out to people, even if no one else work with me, if I'll do all this started off doing it by myself, but being able to just ask for help from other people that were in a higher situation, and kind of learn from them, so that I can get better at my craft, so that I can go and be a better influence to people around the world.
And then I would like to add that, like, we're not saying that you can't want to be an athlete, because if you want to be an athlete, go for your dreams. But also at the same time, is that with the thing about athletics is that eventually it has a starting point and it has an end point. Majority of sports, if not all the sports, you will end before. Like, I know for a tracker, for example, most athletes will probably, I would say for the pro aspect of track, is that you reach your max probably around 25, 27. So by the time you hit 30, you're done with track. So what are you going to do for the next 50 years of your life? Because you can't just go off of just running your whole life, because your body can only stand for so much. But at the same time, we just have to think about, what are you going to do after your sport? What are you going to do after track, after football, after soccer? What's your plan for that? And I would say that something that, because I'm also an athlete as well.
And me as well. I am an athlete as well.
But I would say that one thing I'm taking steps to do right now is basically focus on, like, even outside of like sports, of what I'm going to do after I'm done with sports, after I run my last competitive race. What am I going to do? And right now, basically what I'm focusing on is my videography and photography business, of just creating content, of taking photos, and honestly just showing people a new light of sports, because I still want to be in the sports area even after I'm done with, like, competing, but I just want to just be in that area and just to show people that there are basically other avenues outside of just doing the sport that you can be successful at. And then also outside of that is that to grow my faith, to grow my Christian podcast, to just show people, I would say honestly, who Jesus is in a new light, because I know how a lot of people, they might have their own like preconceptions of who he is, but just to be able to show them who he truly is and just show him in a new light.
Right. That's so important because not many athletes they're only doing practice, or just all everything football, track, everything. They're only doing that 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And once they may get injured, they may be done with the sport. They're doing those things, and a lot of athletes feel helpless. They feel like they don't know what their true purpose is in life because they don't have a balance. Because all they did was practice their sport for the last 18, 20 years, especially as a college athlete. It's a lot of mental health being strained of representing a whole entire university, and now with NIL being known all across the country and across the world, that you kind of have to be put on a pedestal. Your always eyes are always watching you. You're always being known for your athletics. But once you're done, you kind of have an identity crisis because you don't really know what you're doing. Because a lot of people are so stuck with everything with the sports, they don't know how to live life to its fullest. They don't know much about business. They don't know much about like economics, about history, about all these things that is bigger than sports. Because we all focus. A lot of athletes focus so much on the sport that they did not get to enjoy the fruits of everything that was outside of it. And that's where I stress for many athletes to find something, a passion, a hobby, something outside of your sport so that you have some sort of balance that can clear your mind mentally and some sort of purpose within the community that's not related to your sport so that you can continue to build your skill set and something that find out what you really love outside of your sport so that you can have a clear mind.
Because I know a lot of people might not act on that honestly out of fear that if because most people feel like track or like their sport is basically who they truly are. So if they don't have it, what else do they have? So how are people able to discover of what they truly like while still competing for the sport that they love?
What do you say?
Like how are people able to venture out to figure out what they actually like? Because majority of people probably don't even know what they like because they spent so long on their sport. So how does someone figure out what they truly like outside of that sport?
I say have an open mindset. Put yourself into a new environment, an environment of growth, an environment of positivity. And if you don't have one, you can go find it. There's many different communities all over the world that you can literally find different people with different passions if you just have a conversation. Go outside and have an actual conversation outside the cell phone, outside the social media. Go and get to know people. And people that not just look like you, but people that might be from a different part of the world, different part of the city, because a lot of people just want to have genuine conversations nowadays, and we're tired of just being stuck up in like, oh, I'm on this side because I'm an athlete. I'm on this side because I do business. I'm on this side because I do science. Be able to talk to people that are different outside of you, so that you can gain from their knowledge and experience what they go through in the day-to-day life, and try different ways of life so that you can be able to expand your knowledge on how the world really is. Because there's been many times where I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this. But then I actually try something, I actually realized that I love it, and I actually want to do this more. Where I've talked to someone, I had a certain idea of a certain culture, but I had a conversation with them, and I realized that they're not so much different than I am, and that this is something that I actually want to learn more of so that I can continue to grow my mindset and a better understanding of the world.
But would you say you have any other things you would want to talk about?
So one thing I would say is, what would you say for many people that want to grow their faith, especially as an athlete or people that don't come from that type of environment? What would you say?
I would say I can speak on Christianity, but how do people to grow their faith in Christianity? I would say it all just starts with starting from the source of honestly reading the Bible, because that's basically what honestly changed my whole perspective on things. Because at first I basically would go on like YouTube, go on like TikTok, and just try to figure out what is this Christianity, who is God, who is Jesus, and do that. But with doing that, I've heard a lot of different perspectives. So you would have one people who believe in this, one people who believe in this. You would hear on the internet, this is true, and then someone 3 minutes later would say that isn't true. So then it just starts a lot of confusion of what do I actually believe, what is actually right, what's actually wrong. But until I basically read the Bible for myself, for where that is basically where all the what it truly means to be a Christian. That's all in that entire book. So we just have to honestly read it for yourself, and then as you are studying it out, you are able to build new ideas of what actually is true, what actually isn't, how we are supposed to live and how we aren't supposed to live. And I would say that's basically the foundation of how to build the relationship, but also at the same time, we still need to have a community. So you need to find a community of believers, of people who want to figure out who God is and actually take steps in reading the Bible. So then as you are reading it and figuring out who God is, they are reading it, figuring out who God is, and then you are able to build the community together so that you guys can keep each other accountable to live to the standard of what God calls us to live.
Okay, I love that. What would you say to people that don't like to read? How can they do that just in their everyday life? Like if they want to do it right now, today, and they just wanted to learn more.
I would say that when it comes to reading, is that I'm not really a person who really like to read either, but I just know that basically the way I think of it is if you know that you really need it, what would basically be stopping you? So I know that in my walk of faith is that to figure out who God is, that God basically had people like make like a book so that we are able to understand who he truly is. And that's basically what I find value in, because that's what I find value in, and is that is basically what is true. So I need to be able to honestly, what it comes down to is just sacrifice what is actually valuable, what actually isn't. So since I know that the Bible is valuable, I have to basically take steps to go about that. So since I didn't like reading, I had to start picking up the habit of just reading it, even though I didn't like it at the time, that I have to do that in order to build my faith. Or when it comes down to people, is that we all, this is just like a general topic as well, is that if people don't align with what you believe and they are not really helping you anymore but hindering you, then you might have to leave the group that's hindering you to be able to advance of who you're really trying to be. And in the same way is when it works with God. Is so if I'm reading the Bible and I believe this to be true, and then people are contradicting that or trying to hold you back, you might have to just go around, find new people to advance your own faith in God.
Love that. So this is a very powerful episode of our first new series, Faith and Finances, empower the next generation to build their faith as well as build wealth. So that goes hand in hand, having your purpose, finding your why, and who you'll become. So thank you all for tuning in for the show. Make sure to follow us on our pages. Follow me at CoreyPhillips3 on Instagram or Social Storm 5 on Instagram. You can follow Christian.
Yeah, you can follow me on, if you want to, you can follow my Advancing God's Kingdom page on YouTube of Advancing God's Kingdom, like no spaces, and then you have on Instagram it's Advancing God's Kingdom _, and that's where you can find us. But
now, you all have a very good day, and y'all stay blessed and live your truth.
Yeah, so have a great day.